So I never was going to lose that hunger. The hunger's always there for me. It was more about how to control the animal inside. Smashed my head into the rock, and I just felt my whole neck and spine, like right down through my body, explode. It was like this. Looking straight up to the lip and wanting to put your back leg through it.
That was the voice of Rob Bain. I'm going to read some of Rob's bio from the Encyclopedia of Surfing. Droll but friendly Australian goofy footer from Queenscliff, New South Wales. World ranked number 5 in 1990. Bain was born in 1962 in Sydney, Australia. He began surfing early and then all but quit at age 13, not long after his father died. He left home at 16, worked a series of labour jobs, and then picked up surfing again in his late teens. Bain finished third in the 1984 Australian national titles, turned pro, and steadily worked his way up the ratings, finishing in the top 10 from 1988 to 1991, winning 4 world-class events in his career. Bain's wide-stanced lateral driving surf style was more functional than graceful, but he earned a reputation as one of the world's best in bigger, hollower waves. His dry wit made him a favourite among the surf media and his peers. Bain also finished third in the 1993 Longboard World Championships. In 1998, at age 35, he won his second Australian titles and placed 4th in the World Surfing Games. In 2009, he broke his neck and several vertebrae surfing his home break after a freak accident in small waves. Actually, Rob goes into this story in this interview as well. He returned to the water 6 months later. It was Bain's second near-death experience in 1994. He was pinned underwater after a tsunami rolled through his hut during a surf trip to G-Land in Java. Actually, in the show notes, I'll put a link to, there's a little animated video that Red Bull put out about that story. It's really cool. Thank you to Matt Warshaw for letting me read that. If you guys want to learn more about Rob, you can read the complete bio at eos.surf or Google the Encyclopedia of Surfing. There's also some more videos and photos of Rob up there as well. And of course, any other surf person you want to learn more about, the Encyclopedia of Surfing is your resource. Rob also often appears on Ain't That Swell podcast, one of my favourite surfing podcasts.
Up the Swellians!
Ain't That Swell is available on iTunes. A couple of things before we get into the interview. I'm now officially living and working as a surf coach and personal trainer in the Malibu area. So you can contact me through my website if anyone out there is interested in getting some coaching or training done. Secondly, a lot of listener emails have been coming through. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Quite a few of them were done through the contact page on the website where you have to enter in your email address, and a few of those were entered incorrectly. So if you have not received a reply from me, that is probably why. This interview took place overlooking Bilgola Beach in February earlier this year, 2018. Thank you, Rob, for taking the time. Thank you so much for your listenership, and please share this episode with others. I present Rob Bain. When did you start surfing?
I started surfing probably when I was about 2 or 3 years of age at Manly Beach. We grew up in a small apartment block. When I was a kid, I nicknamed it the Cockroach Castle. But it was a very small flat right on Manly Beach, in the middle of Manly Beach. And my mum had the ability to actually watch me cross the road as a toddler and jump into the ocean. So it started really early for me. It's funny because a lot of people have said they thought that I started quite late because I had a bit of a skateboarding background as well when I was a young teenager. But no, I started really early surfing.
That's really early.
Yeah, super early. Like, a little zippy board, and then you sort of migrate off that and to a foamy. So I rode foamies for a long time. Then picked up my first fiberglass surfboard, I think, when I was about 7 or 8 off the next door neighbour, Jackknight Surfboards, and sort of just progressed from there.
Do you remember what drew you to the water back then?
Well, firstly, the lucky thing was that my parents, they emigrated from England and Scotland. They came out as 10-pound poms, as they say. So, they got the boat trip out. My mum and dad arrived, didn't have a cent to their name. My dad had to find a job virtually the day he landed. So I think they spent their last couple of dollars on a drink each, and then he had to find a job. And lucky enough that they migrated close to the beaches. They started in Mossman, had my sister there. My sister was born there, and then they moved down to Manly. And there was a decision at that time whether they were going to move to this small block of land in Penrith, or they were going to move to the ocean. And lucky for me, they moved to the ocean into this little Craigydon flats, they were called. And so it was a natural progression for me. It was right there. So as a kid, you're always looking to get out. I suppose as a toddler, I was introduced by my mum and dad to actually go in the surf. But from that point onwards, it just became my life, really. It's it was a big period of time through there from when I was born through till I was about 12 years of age. We lived in those block of flats, and we moved around within flats within that apartment building. There was a shared toilet. It was pretty lowbrow, to be honest. And as I said, it was called Cockroach Castles because my Saturday night included like getting a water pistol and shooting the cockroaches off the wall. It was pretty rough and ready, but the beauty was that it was right across the road from the ocean. And my dad wasn't very well. He was a big drinker and he was a chain smoker. And he'd put down like 3 packets of cigarettes a day, and I don't know. He went through a lot in the war, and just had a pretty rough upbringing. So my escape from that internal environment with that small flat was to get into the ocean. And I can picture it now as I just felt free when I was in the ocean. It just had this draw for me to get out of whatever situation was happening on the land. I'd take myself to the ocean and I'd instantly feel better. And it hasn't changed. That has not changed to this day. So, it was a beautiful place to grow up. I was very, very fortunate to be able to be across the road from the beach.
Yeah. It's recognised as one of the best surf beaches in major cities in the world, isn't it?
Yeah, iconic. Manly's an iconic spot, and it obviously had a lot of champions. I think I was 2 years of age when Midget Farrelly, right across the road from our flat, won that Ampol World Surfing title. And that was kind of like the first recognised surfing title. So, I was probably in a stroller across the road with my mum. So, yeah, growing up on that beach, a lot of fond memories and a lot of, great things happened for me.
Did that inspire you to compete?
No, competition was a funny one for me. It was, I think by nature I'm a competitive person. I played football when I was young and represented my local area, and skateboarded and did that competitively for a while. And in early days, like 76, around the same time as Dogtown Z-Boys. And so I think early on I was competitive. I had that competitive spirit within me. But surfing for me was always just about freedom and about having fun. And it wasn't till I was about 18, I was out of home, I was out of school, I was just working in factories, and I was just used to have a great time with my friends right off on the weekends. And then a guy came up to me at a local milk bar there at Queenscliff, the northern end of Manly, and said, would you like to join the Boyd Riders Club? And I said, I haven't really thought about it, and he said, no, come on, you'll enjoy it. You surf, we've seen you surfing out here for years, you surf well, come and join up. So I joined up, and I went in a contest. I ended up winning and won B grade, and then I moved up to A grade. And then through that association of that guy, Roger, at Queenscliff Board Riders, I ended up competing in the local amateur association, which is the Northern Beaches, and did well in that, ended up winning it the following year, got to the state titles, and really quickly found myself in the Australian team with Gary Kong-Elkton, Simon Law, Damien Hardman. So there wasn't a long competitive period for me. It was just all sort of happened quite quickly. And all of that time I was working a day job. So didn't have a sponsor. I was working in a factory in Brookvale, clowning around with my mates on the weekend. So I almost fell into it. So I came into it really inexperienced and just a knockabout young guy that all of a sudden found him in a situation where he was competing with the ability to potentially go further to become a pro surfer. So it was a sort of strange way of, arriving, really.
How did you get to that next level where you started competing on an international level?
I kind of did it myself, really. It's and I did it myself in the sense that I realised that I didn't want to go back to working in a factory. It wasn't where I wanted to be. I was unhappy there. I knew that there was more for me. So I made the Australian titles, and right at that time I had a choice of whether to jump into a bongo van with my friends and travel Australia, or if I was to make it through the Australian titles into the world team, then I wouldn't be jumping into the bongo van, I'd be going to the world amateur titles. So it was around that time where I realised that I had the ability to take this further than just being a weekend competitor in some amateur events. So I got to California, and I realised I didn't want to go back to that factory job. So I knew that the only way to not do that was to win, and I just became super determined to win. I thought, well, no, someone on that Sunday afternoon is going to pick up a paycheck. Someone is going to get through to that round where you can get enough money to get to the next event. And I just thought, I was just super determined not to go back to where I was. And I just used that as my own motivation to figure out how to win. And that meant a number of different things. It meant obviously getting on the right wave. It meant positioning yourself in the lineup to take the inside, which sometimes became like a barroom brawl. It was like a fight, because in those days of competition, it wasn't so much about priority; it was about fighting for a wave. So there was that, and it was, and then just surfing. Surfing well when you got the opportunity, and that took some time for me, because I came obviously from this blue collar sort of factory barroom brawl attitude. I'm gonna win whatever it takes, because I had to trying to learn how to be a professional and compete professionally and be able to relax in certain situations. So that actually took some time for me.
Did you have help along that journey?
I did actually. I had help and it was quite far into it. I used to compete every year down at Manly, and the Coke Classic would come around. It was like the last event of the year. It was super important. It was my home beach. I should have owned that event, just because I was born and raised there. But every year I'd stuff it up. I'd go out in a heat, I'd hassle someone, I'd get an interference, or I'd, for some reason, wouldn't get myself on the right waves. I was psyching up to loud music and just, so that same barroom brawling sort of attitude was what I was taking to those heats, hence why I was making mistakes. And it was funny, I came in after one of the losses, and this guy came up to me, a guy by the name of Eric Fleming, and Eric came up to me, and I knew him from the school days, and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "What do you mean, what am I doing?" And he goes, "You're blowing it." And he said it may pay for you just to come and have a chat with me. Anyway, I didn't really know what Eric did, but he was a psychologist. So, and he'd done some work, I think, with Pam Burrich and a few other people just locally. So I just remember Eric as being a prefect at school and busting me for smoking on the bus. So I went to see Eric, we had a chat, and the one thing Eric really taught me, which was fantastic, and it lasted a long time for me in a competitive sense, was just, it was about centering, and it was about breathing, and it was about finding that spot where you can relax. And I'd never done that. The only thing I'd ever done in my whole life up until that point was to get psyched up, angry, ready, fight. And so it was a real turnaround for me to take myself to a spot where I was relaxed and calm and confident. And I used those sort of skills for a while when I was competing. And it wasn't rocket science. It was just a sense of breathing, taking yourself to a space that was comfortable, visualizing, no matter what the conditions were like, and then putting yourself into a position where you were calm and relaxed, and you almost knew that wave was going to come to you at some stage. So yeah, that was really helpful.
Did that cause you to lose any of your hunger and fight? Like, how do you find the balance between being calm and relaxed, but still maintaining that hunger, which sounds like is what initially drove you to get better in the first place?
I think the way I used it, if I really think about it, was instead of, like, I was naturally amped to win. I wanted to win, otherwise I wouldn't be in it. You know, if you're going to compete, you're there. You're not just there for the experience. You're actually there to win. You know, that's what competition's about. And for me, it was, it was a personal goal. I wanted to try and get ahead in life. You know, I didn't want to go back to where I was. And I wanted to be successful, you know. I just wanted to make it. I wanted to build for my family when it got to that stage as well. So it was super important. So I never was going to lose that hunger. The hunger's always there for me. It was more about how to control the animal inside. And that was about, let's say you're in a heat and you could be a pipeline. You got 3 other guys around you, a little different to now where it's man on man, but you'd have 3 other guys around you, and it takes 25 seconds for those guys to finish a wave and be back on your inside if they want to. That's stressful. You got 8 to 10 foot surf. It's bombarding everywhere. There's commentators yelling over. There's crowd on the beach. There's people paddling your inside. You have to find that calm spot, that central spot to just go, okay, it's all right. Just stay confident, be aware. Otherwise, you get into those sort of those brawling situations where you're highly stressed and you make mistakes. So I think in the end for me it was about the yin and yang. It was like aggressive on the wave, the way I surfed the wave, my attitude towards the wave, aggressive potentially paddling back out. But once you're there, just remember to breathe and put yourself back in a spot where you're in a calm state again. You're smart, you're in control, you're thinking of the situation. So that was important for me to learn that, because I'd come from such a aggressive nature in the beginning.
Yeah, and we're talking about shortboarding.
Yeah.
But you're also a champion longboarder.
Yeah, kind of. It's a long story. I longboarded when I was young, on and off, never competed. Just did it when the conditions are right. I'm a firm believer that, your equipment is suited to whatever the conditions might be. So if it's 1 foot and it's offshore, then yeah, take a longboard out, or take a fish out, or take a shortboard if the waves are good. Take a boogie board out, or a bodyboard if you feel like it. So I longboarded, and I love old school longboarding. And what happened was there was 12 of us, the top 12 in the world shortboarders, got invited by Nat Young to surf in the World Oxbow Longboard titles in Hawaii. And I thought, this is going to be great. It's a bit of fun. Like, imagine going up against these great longboarders. So I ordered a board off a guy called Mark Rabbage here in Australia, who goes out with Pam Burridge. And anyway, Mark made me this board. It was a little bit narrower and sort of suited to bigger waves in Hawaii. So I went and competed, and I just scratched through my first couple of heats. And I remember I had one heat with David Nueva, and I just thought, how good is this? I'm against this legend, And I just scraped in ahead of him, and it was a very small Haleiwa. So when Haleiwa's tiny, you kind of got little rights and little lefts. There's all this talk about this swell coming. So I scraped through a couple of heats, and then the swell got massive. And it was epic. It was still one of probably my favourite events, just because it got so big. It was so heavy out at Haleiwa, and anyone that surfed Haleiwa at size knows how dangerous it is. You get caught inside, and you can get absolutely smashed out there. But the beauty was, on a longboard, it gave you that paddling ability to get out and get into the right sets, and it was just a whole different approach to surfing. Like on a longboard in really big waves, it's almost like you're, instead of like flying a jet fighter, you're flying this jumbo, and you got to think about everything pre-doing it. So it's all about timing. So your bottom turn has to be timed to ensure that you can get to top of that 8 foot lip at the right time, and it's really fun, really challenging. And yeah, so I made the final, and I was in the final with Rusty Kaylana, Bonga Perkins, and Glenn Winton, who was another shortboarder. And did really well. I think I won my semi and got one of the highest scores of the event. But in the final, I was struggling a bit to catch waves, and it was a funny thing, because deep down, I didn't even know if I really wanted to be known as a world longboard champion, because I was right in being so competitive in shortboards. and I kind of blew that final. I needed and I may not have won. I mean, Rusty ended up winning it. I got third, but I remember I needed a 4.9. I'll never forget that. I needed a 4.9 to win the world title, and I didn't get it. And so yeah, I was very close to winning a world longboard title, which I kind of regret now. I think, I should have just. How did I not get that wave? But the trophy is one of my favourite trophies. I've still got it there. I seen it the other day. It's this beautiful Hawaiian god, war god, carved out of like mango tree, and yeah, it's just such great memories. Really great memories of that one.
Yeah. Do you think your longboarding experience helped you to be a better shortboarder?
It can do. I think one thing that I always used to do when I got bored riding my shortboard was I'd purposely always get my longer board and ride it, even when it's frustrating, because what happens is it tends to help you draw your turns out and rethink about, I think, the way you surf a wave. But the other thing it does, when you get back on your shortboard, it just becomes this super maneuverable, lively. It's got a spring in its step, and you just rip harder on it because you almost trained your brain to draw things out and get a bit frustrated, and then you go back to the shortboard. It feels lively. We used to do that quite a lot when we were on tour because you were surfing so many waves on the same board, heat after heat. It becomes quite monotonous and you get quite bored. So the way to liven it up is to get on a longer board. Then you get back on a shorter board and you feel so much better. Yeah. So yeah, it helps in a way. It is two different styles of surfing, I must say, though.
Yeah. Yeah, well, no, I find it's common with a lot of really good surfers I meet. They don't talk about it much, though, but they actually do have a lot of experience longboarding and riding alternative equipment.
Yeah, I think once you're a surfer at a particular level, it's quite easy to adapt to different equipment. It's just a different style of surfing. It's if you're riding a fish, you got to draw it out. You can't get too vertical. You got to think about what you're doing and pre-plan it and keep it smooth. Similar to a longboard. I mean, there is guys that surf high-performance longboards, but to me, I don't like that. I actually love the traditional Joel Tudor style, Nat Young, Midget Farrelly. That's beautiful, stylish longboarding. To me, it's just beautiful to watch.
Yeah. So you mentioned being calm, sort of, making the right wave choice and sort of managing the animal. But when you're on a wave, on a shortboard, you just want to rip the bag out of it. You want to be the animal.
Yeah.
When you're on a longboard, does the attitude change?
For me, it does. Yeah, it's
How
more
so?
about it's more about being in harmony with the wave, if you will. Like, you utilize the power of the wave, but it really is about flow. Because of the simple nature of a longboard, you can shoot out ahead of the wave. So then it's about that beauty of dropping your back leg and opening your shoulders up and redirecting back, and just the simple nature of that turn where you are opening your shoulders out and you're feeling that glide of the rail through the water. By default, it feels beautiful. So you tend to adapt to your equipment in that way, and then it is more of a gliding sensation. You're walking up the nose, you're sort of feeling that, you're floating. It's a lot different to burying a rail on a shortboard, looking straight up to the lip and wanting to put your back leg through it. I just think they're two different surfings, and both equally as beautiful as each other, but it's just a different attitude that you take to the equipment that you ride. Yeah, that's how I see it.
Yeah. So when you're doing a bottom turn on a shortboard and you're looking up at the lip, you want to put your back leg through it.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
your attitude, yeah?
Yeah. And that, in my mind, that is, it kind of defines where you go when you're surfing. I really believe that you get to a certain level and then it just becomes to how you visualize what you want to do on that wave and how you visualize where you want to go on that wave. To me, there's, and I mean, we can talk about this now if you want, but it's, there's a lot of surf coaching, if you will. A lot of surf coaching that I see at the moment is defined by where a young competitor wants to go. So if you were to define surfing as a sport and you had to do it a certain way to get points and to be successful, then you coach it in a certain way. And to me, I've found at the moment that some of the surf coaching, actually I should say the majority of surf coaching, is defined by where they want that student to be in a competitive sense. So a lot of it's dictated by, hey, you need to surf this particular way. When you do that maneuver, you have to put your arms a certain way. And I just feel that there's a lot of the surfers are becoming similar because they're getting coached to surf a certain way. I fear that if that is the trend, then the coaching needs to change somewhat, because I think individual style is crucial to keep surfing quite an individual, not sport, just to be an individual. Like, everyone has a particular style when they start. I would just hate to see that coached out of them to be successful for a convention. Because really, if you think about competition, there is a convention that you need to surf to get through the QS, to get through the juniors and the amateurs and the QS to get to the world stage. And I fear that if everyone's coaching and trying to surf a certain way, they may lose that individual style. I don't know if that'll happen, but that's one of my fears of seeing where it's going at the moment.
No, I agree. And you look at the best of the best, and they have a very unique style.
Yeah.
Like John
yeah.
style.
Yeah, incredible.
Kelly, just freak.
Yeah.
Andy.
Yeah, beautiful to watch. As soon as he's up on his board, he's just amazing. I worry that if all of that surf coaching is directed in that path, because I'm within, I work within the industry, so I see all the sponsored kids, and I see how hard they work at it. I just worry that they end up getting directed to do things in the early stages of their surfing career that programs them to surf a certain way because it's pictured as being good. The convention says that that's a good way to surf. To me, I believe that those years, those development years, are really crucial for a surfer to figure out his own style and to surf his own unique way. And I don't think really it's till about anywhere from 16 through 20 that they fully develop. So in my mind, just let the kids be kids and figure it out for themselves. Because kids, they look, they watch videos, they see surfers at their local lineup, they'll surf a certain way. It's important for them to be individual and to create their own unique style.
So if there's any coaches listening...
Well, there could be. So I hope I don't say the wrong thing.
No. It needs to be talked about. I agree with you. And if they are listening, what advice would you have for them as a coach?
I think, rather than squash something that might be looked upon as slightly different, embrace it. Get that surfer to work on it and accentuate it, because, there's certain things like, a surfer might have, a drop knee in a particular turn, or he might hold his arms a certain way. As long as that's not completely ugly, and it's got flow and it doesn't get in the way of technically where he wants to go, embrace it and really push that forward, as opposed to, rolling out all of these kids that are going to surf a certain way so they could get through a heat or look a certain way in that heat. So, yeah, I think it's just embracing the quirkiness of some surfers,
Yeah.
Keep them unique as possible anyway.
Yeah, it makes me think of Brendan Margot.
Oh, yeah. Classic case in point. That guy had an amazing style and still does. I think he's still ripping today, so, yeah.
Yeah, because, obviously you don't want to... It's part of surf coaching, isn't it? You need to have the fundamentals. You need to know what the judges are looking for. But at the same time, you don't want to lose that quirkiness in your own surfing. Yeah. And I think, for me, I've had a lot of surf coaching done, and most surf coaches are very, they want they want to change those little things, and it does help. But for me, my reason for getting surf coaching done isn't to win a competition or to fit the judging criteria. It's just to learn how to be a better surfer, and then I take those lessons into my free surfing. So maybe that's something that competitive surfers need to maybe have more of an attitude around, is like, because I always say to the people I coach as well is this: it's one thing to be focused on winning a competition, but if you lose that love for surfing, and if you lose that love for getting better at surfing just to make surfing more fun, then it's just going to become more of a job than a passion.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what happened to me towards the end of my career. I didn't lose the love for surfing, but I lost the love for the situation I found myself in. It was, I was done with it. I was done with competition, to be honest. Yeah. And I could have kept going for a while, but my life circumstances just were saying, time to get out. Yeah. So I look at a lot of these young kids, and I see obviously they've got dreams, and we sponsor young kids, and I just would always want to see them remain with that love, just for the reason they got into it in the first place. Don't get clouded by it's all about results and surfing a certain way. Just go there and be free and enjoy it, because the ocean gives you way more than any heat's ever going to give you, or any competition win's going to give you. I'm looking out your window now, and I'm itching to get out in the water right now. Yeah, it's just that don't lose that love for it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what about the intermediate average surfer? What do you see any common mistakes that you see in the water just with that group of surfers?
Yeah, I see a lot of people riding the wrong equipment. I think the great marketeers within the surfboard industry, and I don't want to name names, but there's been some board models that have come out that are dog shit. They're not good boards, but I see tons of intermediate surfers riding them, and it's just I feel that they've been lied to a little bit. So and I also feel that a lot of surfers are not riding the right equipment, for their body weight or their ability. There's a lot to be said about volume and the right bottom curve and a board that can get you into more waves. Because obviously, if you catch more waves, you're going to be getting more practice. You're going to be more fun. So a lot of surfers are under equipped. The boards that they ride, they're riding potentially the wrong equipment, and then I see, because of that, they're tending to try to generate speed, and they're trying really hard, but in the end what they're doing, they're bouncing, they're pushing water, and they're not flowing with the wave. So I think that is a bit of a handbrake for a lot of guys, that they don't even really know it. And then I think it's about, it's really about how you visualize the wave, trying to flow with the wave, not push against the water, but learn to flow with the wave first. See a lot of young kids riding very small boards too. I think they should ride bigger boards, thicker boards, because that teaches them how to draw out a turn. That's really important for a young kid. I see a lot of people on their backhand where their shoulders dropped and they're looking up to the lip and they want to get to the lip. But what they don't realise is, unless they open that inside shoulder up towards the lip, they won't be able to turn their head. If they open it up, they'll be able to see the lip. And instantly, like snowboarding, when you open your shoulder out, your board follows. So if you open your shoulder up, look to the lip, turn your head up to it, your board is going to go that way as well. So if you've got a drop shoulder, you just can't get there. Your board's going to straighten out and not make it to the lip. So there's like little things like that I see a lot with intermediate surfers. And sometimes if the kid's friendly and, I kind of know him out in the surf, I'll give him a little tip here and there. I like doing that. I did some surf coaching in the early days with Ace Bucket and Parko and all of those guys. Haven't done it for a long time, but I really love that side of it. Try and help people where I can with that.
Yeah, and I guess tweaking your technique to get the fundamentals right is even harder if you're trying to surf a Ferrari and you're supposed to be in maybe this it's been nice. You're supposed to be in a V8, then maybe you need to get back on a V8 rather than a Ferrari or a Formula One car.
Yeah, I just see a lot of guys are struggling on the equipment that they're on, unfortunately, and it's hard for them to make a decision because it's they have all this marketing thrown at them, and you're going to sort of believe what you see, and then you feel that that's going to work for you, and
yeah, well, there's just no room for error if you're on a board that's, if you weigh the same as Julian Wilson and you're on the same shape and literage as him, you got to realize there's no room for error.
No.
You're going to have to be.
He's finely tuned. He can make something like that work, whereas
Exactly.
the average guy is going to struggle.
Yeah, and I've been going up in volume and using alternative shapes, and started longboarding recently, and it's the best thing I've done for my surfing, hands down.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. It's just so much easier to change things, and yeah, it's the best. So I'm going to second that for sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, it is. We're a victim to marketing in a lot of ways.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I think it's changing though. Like I'm living in the States now, and the surfers over there are riding a lot of different equipment, like a lot of local shapers that are shaping thicker, fatter boards, and
Yeah.
it's different to
Which
here.
is good.
Yeah,
And it's as we talked about before, your surfing changes depending on what equipment you ride.
Yeah.
But certainly for the intermediate guys that want to get better, they really have to ensure that they've got enough volume in their board, that they're on the right piece of equipment for their ability level. And sometimes that's difficult even for the shop staff to know. They kind of ask a guy like, where are you at? How do you surf? Oh, and you look at they'd be looking at the guy and his makeup, and so even there's lost in translation. If you don't know what you want, and then the shop staff's leading you to a particular board style that's in that store, there's a lot of guesswork in that to get it right. So even a coaching in that sense is important for an intermediate guy, that because your equipment can shortcut where you're going to end up in 6 months. Yeah. So it's like one of those things, get it right, like that's why potentially a surf coach can be good for that, because you could turn up to a surf lesson with the equipment that you've got, and he could just go, hey, go trade that thing in now, get this model. If he's a good surf coach, he should be able to do that, because that's primarily your tools of trade are so important. Bang, you're ahead of the game because you're instantly on equipment that's going to work. Yeah, I think it's really important.
Does a particular board model come to mind?
No, not really. I'd rather not say, but yeah,
Fair enough.
There's quite a few that you shouldn't ride.
I think we kind of know, and I might. I'm going to be talking about that in an episode coming up anyway. So.
Okay, great.
You're talking about your competitive drive and your hunger for surfing, and when you stopped being a competitor, you took that into the business world, and you became successful in the business world.
Yes and no.
Well, so some of the lessons you had in competitive surfing, has that helped you to be successful in business?
Yeah, I think so. I think if I try to think about the attributes that I learned while I was doing it, because initially when I started, I was just a punk kid that came out of a factory job that didn't finish school. So I had to draw on whatever physical strengths I had, because I certainly didn't have the education and the smarts to be successful in a business sense then. So I had to learn during that competitive stage, like not only how to win against the other competitors, but how to survive on the road with no money, to meeting new cultures, to just life skills in a way. So really, while I was doing that, obviously everyone at home was getting their trades or going on to be successful through university or business. So the surfing tour can hide you away from that. So you need to be doing something positive while you're on the road and building certain skills, because when you finish, there's no entry point. There's no easy entry point, or there wasn't. There may be more now. But for me, it was like I was starting at ground zero. And so I went into a sales role, and just simply because I had the personality pull it off. I was quite competitive, wanted to win, so that's always good in sales. And, you know, I remember that transition point where my sponsor said, hey, look, work for me in this sales role in Sydney, but I'll keep you part of the team. If we're ever doing any trips or any shoots, you'll be involved. I remember I was in the sales office, the waves were pumping, the guys were filming, and I didn't get a call, but I knew they were doing it, and that was it. I knew it was over. I was now a worker, not a surfer anymore. And I remember selling to this small surf shop, and the guy said to me, he said, how does this feel? And I went, well, what do you mean, how does this feel? And he said, you know, like 6 months ago, you're one of the better surfers in the world, and now you're here making me cups of coffee and trying to sell me this shit. And right at that point, I didn't know whether to pick him up and throw him out the window or what to do. But I realised that was my reality. You know, I was back at ground zero. It was like when I was in the amateur titles, and I had to fight my way out of there again. So it was a reality. I had 2 kids, and I had to pay a mortgage, and, you know, I had to survive. So I just chipped away and proved that I could work hard, because I think the hard thing for a lot of retiring athletes or pro surfers, if you will, was how do you work a day job after you've had this incredible lifestyle on a pedestal for an amount of time, you know? So it's just, the reality is you got to do what it takes, you know, especially if you've got a young family. And so that's what I did. I just chipped away and kind of climbed up the ranks, if you will, within the surf industry, got to myself to a particular level, and things went a bit pear-shaped once I stepped into that arena, because I felt like I was swimming with sharks, and probably wasn't my natural environment, to be honest. And I'm still involved in the surf industry now and in a marketing role, and enjoy the team I work with. But yeah, so I don't know, I wouldn't call it success in a financial sense. I'd probably call it success in the way I've handled myself, the way I've dealt with people, and the fact that I'm still balancing this surf work lifestyle. And to me, that's kind of worth more than money. I've still, you know, my family's there. My wife still loves me, I think. So, you know, they're successes to me. And especially after I had an accident a while ago, it you know, that accident really set my mind to what's important in life. And that was a big moment for me.
Are you talking about North Avalon 2009?
Yes.
There's a lot of American listeners. Could you summarise that for us?
Yeah, I had a surfing accident. I was at North Avalon at a place called Off Rocks. It's a local wave that we surf, and I love it. It's one of those waves I wish I'd had as I was a kid, because when it works, it's just this beautiful little left that runs across these boulders to the beach. Takes certain conditions for it to work properly. So this day was really good. It was a Sunday. I woke my son up, Billy, and I said, mate, do you want to go for a surf at Off Rocks? I think it'll be good. He said, yeah, we'll go. So we ran across, and it was probably about 20 guys in the lineup. It was really, really fun. Bruce Raymond, you know, ex-Quicksilver guy was out there. Greg Webber. There was a bunch of sort of industry people, and it was really fun. It was breaking out of this spot called Lobbies, which when it breaks from Lobbies, you know, it's lining up good and it's way inside. But what that does too is it brings it closer onto the rock shelf. We were surfing for a while, me and my son. I got a wave and Bruce was going to drop in. I called him off, and I remember I was going through the inside, and there was this really long section in front of me. I was hauling ass, like going really fast, so I floated up onto the top of the lip and rode like a long floater. And then when I landed down in the flats, I could see the wave was racing off from me, and I just miscalculated where I was, and the wave rifled off, and I just dove in like a pencil dive. So I had my arms down by my side and just went in head first. And instantly when I went under the water, I smashed my head into the rock, and I just felt my whole neck and spine, like right down through my body, explode. It was like this hot heat. And I was starting to pass out underwater, and I just thought, don't go out. And I fought that. I got to the surface, and everything was like really tingly. I'd knocked the wind out of myself. I just felt like I couldn't breathe. Like, there was this feeling I couldn't breathe. And I knew I was fucked. Like, I instantly knew I was in a bad way. And I reached up, because I hit my head so hard, I reached up to feel what I'd done. And it's one of those things when you board hits you, whether you've got a wetty on that hits you in the bum, you always reach going, oh, I wonder how bad this is, you know. I did that to my head, and my hand went inside my head. So I'd scalped myself. So I'd taken just behind my right ear, like half of my over my sort of top of my forehead, where my hairline is actually, the funny thing is. And it went down sort of where I normally have the part of my hair to the back of my head, so I'd rip, that was flapping around. And I noticed all the blood on my hand. I couldn't breathe properly. I was all like real ginger, and knew I was broken inside. So instantly I just looked for help. I looked up to North Avalon car park, which is just in front of the rocks, because that's where I knew people would be, and I looked straight at my wife. It's the fucking craziest thing. I looked straight at my wife. She was talking to another lady. I didn't even know she'd come across to watch. She'd brought the dog for a walk to watch me and my son surf. Anyway, I looked at my wife and I whistled, and she heard my whistle, and I was pointing at my head, and from there she couldn't see all the blood, and she thought I was actually saying one more wave. So she turned to walk back up with this lady to the car park, and then I just started screaming, and screaming for anyone that was in the water, and she must have heard my screams. And then one of the guys had finished a wave, got to me. He went into a state of shock when he seen me, and he got quite physical trying to get me out of the water. Another kid met us on the way in, because you've got to get off the sort of rock platform. So I was slunched over my board, and this guy was trying to grab me to ensure that I didn't fall off into the water. And I was just trying to tell him I could hardly breathe. I was just telling him, Oshie, mate, be careful. I know I'm broken. I'm broken inside. And anyway, they got me to the beach. A guy ran up and had a hard towel that he stemmed the bleeding on top of my head. And my wife got straight into my line of vision. And it was just one of those moments that I'll never forget it. Like, it was just this incredible, powerful moment with me and my wife. And I just told her I was sorry. And I don't know whether I was sorry because it happened, or sorry because I'd been such a dickhead when we were younger, or whatever. It's just these words came out and went, Gath, I'm so sorry. And because I actually felt at that moment, and for a little time after that, that I was potentially going to die. It was just, I'd never felt that helpless in my life. Like, it was just, I couldn't do anything. You know, I was just in incredible pain. I was I felt so broken. Anyway, she said, we're going to look after you, Rob. Everything's going to be okay. And she just got me straight, and they laid me down in the beach, sort of buried me into the sand. So I couldn't move. And I just remember laying there, and it was just this weird, surreal feeling that I was fading, you know, like. And it reminded me, if you've ever seen the movie Trainspotting, where they do drugs, and there's this scene where the guy falls into the carpet. You know, it's a vision of how he sees himself falling down into the carpet. That's exactly how I felt. And aside from that, I kind of just wanted to get up and run away as well, you know, to get out of the situation. So it was a weird one for me, because I spent my whole life fighting for things, and in that situation, there was nothing I could do. I was just helpless. And I cut a long story short. It's a long story, but yeah, I broke my C7, so I fractured my neck, snapped the first rib, and then I fractured my T2, 4, 5, and 7 in my spine, and scalped myself as well. So it was a big injury, but super lucky, like just really, really lucky. So yeah, that was there was a whole story that went on with that after helicopter coming, and then not taking me in the helicopter, and then an argument between the ambulance drivers and the helicopter driver, and then, you know, getting to hospital and my head blowing up like a balloon. They couldn't operate on me because my neck was broken until the next day. And, you know, just, yeah, on the beach with my son holding my hand, like he thought he was going to lose me. So in the end, I think it was probably more traumatic for my wife and my son than it was for me. And they say that a lot about, like, serious accidents and stuff that happen. So, yeah, that experience for me just sort of deepened my belief in it's the simple things that make you happy in life. And I spent a lot of time laying around in a body brace for a while. I met guys in the hospital, obviously, that would never walk again. So it was a pretty deep experience, that. And, it's just given me more love and more vigour for wanting to surf, because it's just, that's where I feel that's my happiest place I'll ever be. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's heavy.
Yeah, it was heavy. It was really, it rocked me, it really, it rocked me because I was so helpless.
Yeah.
I'd never been like that in my life. I'd always been able to fight myself out of situations, There was a lot of them. So I was reliant on everyone around me, really, to take care of me. So it made me, really pulled me up in life and just went, what's important? And you can run at things like a bull head first all day long, but, what's important is the simple things and the people around you and love and all of that. So it was nice. I'm actually glad it happened, Yeah.
It's a great attitude to have.
Yeah. Well, I'm lucky physically. I'm okay. Like little residual things, but I'm surfing and I'm okay. So I'm just the luckiest man in the world.
Yeah, that's a good attitude to have. I mean, that would put a lot of people off getting back in the water.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I've heard of other people. I've know an old friend that a similar thing happened. He hit the sandbank and broke his neck, and I think he's struggling to get back in. So it took me a little while. It's like gingerly swum out there when I was getting back on my feet, and actually swam out and dived underwater with goggles on to look at where I'd done the damage and go through that whole thought process of what had happened, and just progressed from like a stand-up to a mal to a big fish to back on a shortboard. And actually, it was the recovery time outside of being in the body brace. The hardest part was going back to work. I had this insurance that was potentially going to kick in at 3 months, but I was worried about losing my job, and that's how stupid I am at times. Is I'm competitive. I go, oh God, I've got to get back to work. I've got to earn for my family. I can't be laying around. And I went back to work probably a little bit too early. I remember traveling to Japan, and I was in pain. I couldn't sleep and stressed, and thought, what have I done? So anyway, it's you make choices. So, but yeah, it's definitely given me a different outlook on my life and what's important.
Yeah. If you look back to the moment before it happened, is there anything you learnt to prevent that happening again?
That's actually a pretty tricky question. No one's actually asked me that about when it happened. It's a funny one to answer that, because the beauty of surfing, and when I have sessions where I'm so in the moment. Surfing for me is truly one of those things that I can't think of anything else in my life that puts me so in the moment that I can't even remember doing it. Like, I have surfs where I catch a wave and someone says to me, oh, how was that? And I go, I don't know. I can't remember it. That's weird, because I'm so in it that I'm not, I don't know. It's like this state where I'm not even thinking about it. It's like body memory and just flowing with the wave, and I just get into this state. And I think similarly, that's probably what happened with my accident. Was I was in, riding this wave, and I was turning, and I was speeding, it feels beautiful, floater, land, wave's gone, dive in. I don't even think I was thinking about it properly, because the moment between doing that floater, landing, jumping off, and then thinking I was going to die was like, it was a couple of seconds, so I just did something where I was in the moment. So I don't know, I don't want to think I need to think more when I'm surfing, because it's not where I want to be. I still want to, and I do have to watch myself, because I surf that spot now, and I surf it with my son, and we love it. And I am, in saying that, I probably am thoughtful when I surf there as opposed to other spots, because there's that one spot where I know if I float, there's a consequence. If I pull into the barrel on that one spot, there's a consequence, because those rocks are there. I know they're there, I really know they're there. So it's a tricky question. It's because I don't want to take away that flow state of mind where I'm not thinking and I'm just reacting to naturally all this experience I've built up. But at the same time, you have to be sensible in certain situations. But everyone knows their limitations, I think. You have big wave riders that are incredibly smart, and then you've got other guys that they get broken in the end because they don't think. They just go. So I think everyone has their limitations in a way, and you can break through those by experience. A guy that's scared of 2-foot waves can go out on a 2-foot day and catch a 3-foot set, and all of a sudden now he's ready to go 3 to 4 foot. So you break through those barriers. But I think a vast majority of people know where they're at, at that given time. So, interesting question. I don't know exactly how to answer it.
Do you still dive head first when you
No.
wipe out?
No.
So that's changed.
That's changed. Yeah, that's one thing I've learned. You don't pencil dive. You make sure you got your arms out in front of you, or you dive flat, or you don't dive at all. Yeah.
You were talking about being in the zone. Have you ever had surfs where you couldn't get into the zone? And do you have any strategies to help facilitate you getting back into it or to get deeper into it?
I think, a lot of guys struggle with I do, and they struggle with being in the right mindset or finding the right rhythm in a surf. And I think you almost need to recalibrate. You need to start again. And I think the whole thing about having potentially a focal point or something that triggers you, whether it's you peel off a bead of wax and you just roll it in your fingers and you just anything that is that one spot to bring you back to the now, because most of the time you get pulled out of that relaxed zone by stress around you. It could be there's one dickhead in the water and he keeps paddling up your inside and it's just getting your grills, and it's turning you off your surf, or you have an altercation with someone dropping in on you, or you're thinking about something that happened at work, or the missus has been riding you, or whatever. I think you've just got to find that little spot for yourself, whether it's rubbing the nose of your board or rolling the ball of wax or feeling the water, like just a simple act of just feeling the texture of the water can sometimes just bring you back to, hey, it's quite beautiful, and just breathing as you're going into the wave, like even monitoring your own breath as you're taking off on a wave will put you in a state of, it's okay, and then you start feeling it again. It's all those external things that take you out of the zone, because you think about the beauty when you paddle out in the ocean, what the water does feel like, and the wind blowing on you, and the roll of the ocean. They're all the calming, beautiful, natural effects it has on you. It's such a relaxing thing to do. It's all the crap that's going on in your mind that takes you out of that beautiful environment. So it's just find a way to center back to that, and then you'll be back in the zone again, I think. Yeah. And then there's a whole difference between how you approach the wave. Everyone's different in that sense, Some guys get scared, some guys go for it. Some guys see an oncoming section and they go, oh no, I'm going to straighten out. Others go, I'm going to ride the top of that thing, or I'm going to put my back leg through it. That's the differences between a good surfer and a great surfer, or a surfer that's going to progress is the one that wants to go. He wants to put it on the line, in my mind.
And major injury,
yeah,
age, they're often excuses for people. They think, I can't go out when it's double overhead, or I can't get any better, or I can't try new equipment. What would you say to them?
I think you can keep improving. I honestly believe you don't I feel that you don't really reach your peak until like you're potentially in your 40s. It depends on your physical fitness, and then it's about, I believe, as you get older, like there is certain things that will slow you down. You know, like if you got a really bad back or bad knees or shoulders, or you get to a certain age, it hurts. You know, like stuff hurts, but it's a lot of it is in your mind of where you want to be. You just got to find your limitations, get your correct equipment, and just have the mindset that I want to continue to do this. You just got to love it for the right reasons, you know. And really, I know that you shouldn't be absorbed in one thing. Obviously, life is about a whole range of different things, but the beauty of surfing, I can't understand why people give it away that don't have to give it away. You know, life's pressures are too much. I can't go surfing because I just think it makes for you to be a better person, to be able to enjoy that, you know, like that ocean. It's just incredible. So, yeah, I just think you can keep improving. I actually feel I'm at this transition point. You know, I'm 55 now, and I'm feeling like I probably will start to decline, and I just have to accept that and ride a different way. Let the wave do more of the work rather than wanting to overpower the wave, which I'm still doing now. And but my motivation is still there to be hopefully a good surfer for years to come. And I feel in a way there's sometimes I'm surfing better than I was 10 years ago, which is weird, but it's just I love it now more than I ever have. I don't do it as much, but when I do it, I'm enjoying it so much more than I ever have. Because I know I'm on borrowed time. You know, the surf I don't have is a surf I don't have, and I ain't going to be around for forever. And so even a bad surf's a good surf for me.
Do you have a favourite board at the moment?
Yeah, I have a Simon Anderson I really love, and me and Simon have a long friendship, if you will. I went to his wedding. He actually caddied for me, sort of mentored me in a way. It's just a real quick story, but we went to Hawaii in 1986, and it was myself, Damien Hardman, Greg Anderson, Seth Wilson, Simon Anderson, and his wife Sharon, and actually I don't think it was his wife then, no, his girlfriend Sharon, and we stayed in a house that Simon had organised. I surfed in the Sunset Pro Trials, which meant you had to get through all of these heats to get to the main event. Simon came out and caddied for me a couple of times, and I remember it was probably 8-foot sunset, pretty big for me. I was riding a really terrible board from here in Australia. I just had no experience. And I remember I was freaking out, really, you know, stressed out, had these Brazilians harassing me, and I remember Simon just pulled me aside and said, "Bob, it's like this. You're going to paddle out there, like way out there. You're going to wait for the biggest wave to come through, and then you're going to ride it." I went, well, that's pretty simple information. So I paddled way out, got myself on a big old West Peak, made it through that heat, ended up getting through the trials, and basically was supposed to be the last heat of the day of the main event. They ran the day, couldn't get to my heat because it was getting dark. It was myself, Mark Richards, Ross Clark-Jones, and a guy called Almir Salazar in the heat. So we were going to be the first heat of the next day of competition. Anyway, the next day was flat, but there was this talk about this massive swell coming, a massive swell. And it came. And by the next day, I think in the afternoon, it was 15 feet sunset, like monstrous, with everyone talking about Waimea. And the next day was Waimea. We made our way down from Cavella Bay, sunset, the ocean was washing over the road. It was just this mist in the air. We got down to Waimea and it was 25 to 30 foot, absolutely perfect. And I just stood there on the beach, could not believe my eyes. I'd never seen I'd never seen Waimea. It was like my first trip to Hawaii. I just stood there in awe, like it was just the most incredible thing I've ever witnessed. And then the next thing I knew, my name was being called over the loudspeaker to turn up for the first heat. So I ended up, we had to tie 2 leg ropes together. I borrowed a board off Simon, which I'd got the night before. It was an 8-footer, It had square fins. It had mud all over it. So I'm in the car park cleaning the mud off the surfboard, tying 2 leg ropes together. Had no idea what I was doing. And got a buddy to caddy for me, a guy called Dave Parmenter, who's just an incredible shaper. You may have heard of him. Amazing guy. So he caddied for me, and I paddled out with Ross Clark-Jones. Ross had never surfed Waimea before. So we paddled out together, shitting ourselves. And 2 young Aussies paddling out. Ross was on a 711. I was on an 8-footer. And we got out the back, and I remember Derek Dorner yelling at us, You pussies better not pussy out. You be bad out of it for the right reasons. And we're just sitting there going, fuck. We were that scared. And MR just put himself straight in the spot. He knew what to do. And me and Ross sort of got out there in the lineup. Anyway, the heat went on, and we got some waves. We started to charge into it. You know, it's funny because at first it was like survival. I was like, what the hell am I doing here? You know, like I'm out in this wave you could drive trucks through. And but then when you catch one, that's when this whole competitive thing comes into play. And I'm thinking, fuck, imagine if I got through, you know, why me, a 25-foot? I'm into it. So me and Ross are into it, you know. MR's ruling, and the Brazilian's into it as well. And then that's when the infamous closeout set came through. So the Brazilian was behind me. I was paddling out. I got over one, looked back at him, thinking, you're gone, buddy. And got over the top of this wave and was just greeted with this wall of white water, 25 foot of white water coming at me. And yeah, long story, but tossed my board, dived down, lost my leg rope. Almy nearly drowned in the shore break. Was semi-rescued by a guy called Squiddy, who was like a heavy black short guy in the day on the North Shore, who had one of those old jet skis, you know, with the steering thing goes up and down.
Yeah, the wave runner, yeah.
So yeah, wave runner. So I had to jump on his back, and he'd tow me into the impact zone and then come back and get me. And yeah, it's a long story, but that's kind of my Simon Anderson story. We go way back. I love his boards. He made me a board once for the Australian tour, and I won the Grand Slam on it, won a bunch of money, and yeah, just had this sort of, you know, respect for Simon because he's Simon Anderson. He's a full-blown legend, and yeah, just love his boards. So it's funny that we're back again. You know, I'm riding his boards, and you know, it's a lot simpler now. You know, I'm not sponsored or anything, but the guys give me a decent little deal, and I'm happy, and I love his boards. I think he just makes just really beautiful boards. So I have a 5-spark, which is a little bit more of a fishier shape, and then I have a board called a T&T model. I don't know if he still does it, but it's just a normal shape. And I have some of his old big boards, like an 8-footer and a 7.6. And so, yeah, I enjoy riding his boards.
Awesome.
But I had a relationship, obviously, with Rusty for a long time. Incredible relationship with Rusty, John Carper, you know, just great guys, just really looked after me. And, you know, that's one thing I'd like to say is that all the board shapers that I've been associated with, from starting at Force 9 to Lee Riley here in Sydney when I was a kid, to Rusty, to Nev, to John Carper, to Simon, they all looked after me. They've been just great mentors, you know, in the sense that they're craftsmen, they're real surfers, and they're the backbone of this whole industry, really. Yeah.
Cool. Rob, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Do you have an Instagram handle or a website you can point people in the direction of?
My Instagram handle given to me by my kids. I said, what should I call myself? And they said, call yourself Big Bad Bob Bain. So it's at Big Bad Bob Bain.
All right.
Yeah, so that's where you can find me, and I enjoy it. I've connected with people from the past. I have a lot of fun. I sometimes tell a little Friday flashy to give a little story, but for me it's just about having fun with it, you know.
Yep.
So I really enjoy it.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Rob, thank you.
Cheers up.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries.